So today I'm working on a new drawing of a bighorn sheep. And this is, a lot of times you think teachers are inspiring students. This is a case where student inspires teacher. And so this is um, where Aiden Gerke, one of my former students, has got me hooked on doing some wildlife, and it's really relaxing because no one knows if you got the wildlife wrong compared to if you do a figure. Everybody knows if the figure's right or wrong. Here it's just I can just do whatever I want, and it's just I can just be very creative and loose and come up with my own ideas on this, on how to do the animal, And so I'm just having fun describing how everything's going to work here, and it's, I find these to be pretty relaxing paintings, and so I'm just doing very simple layers at a diagonal, and this is from a photo that I took in Glacier National Park, and it's going to be a very fun, simple, quick, relaxing painting. So I'll do kind of the same thing I did last time. This painting should go a lot faster, and we'll see how this goes. I think what I'll do is I'll do a lot of the negative space, and then work the figure of the bighorn sheep in here, and see where we end up. But this will definitely be interesting. And bighorn sheep are they're just incredible, beautiful animals. The strength, the power, the interesting horns, and they're just fun to watch in nature, in real life, if you ever get to see one. A wild bighorn sheep doing its thing. And so this one's going to be eating all these, I think they call them fireweeds. I'll have to look that up again just to make sure. They're bright red, and the bighorn sheep just love eating them. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of fireweed here. So I'll have this nice, interesting red coming down through here, and then I'll have a really strong, bright, fluorescent green in here. And then that'll be against rocks, and then background will fade off to kind of a gray, and then a very kind of a grayish green, washed out green in the background. And that should give me my depth. I was thinking of putting some mountains and stuff in the background, but I think this is going to be plenty for this bighorn sheep. It's just the sheep, the flowers, that's in the slope of the hill. That's pretty much what the story's going to be. So it'll be a fun drawing and painting. So I've worked on trying to get a negative space here filled in with a little value and color, and I'll deal with I'll have to deal with the structure of some of this stuff in detail later, but it's coming along. I'm just adding this beautiful color here. Try to create a feeling of space. It's starting to get there. And I just wanted to show you how far we are so far. So I'll work on some of this area in here, and then I'll concentrate on just doing the bighorn sheep. And it's looking fun. So I'm just doing a kind of cross-hatching, adding color and value, trying to get some grays in there to help create contrast, but I'm enjoying the really strong, rich colors so far. I need to really bring them out in this foreground and really increase the contrast here, because I have really strong contrast here. I might have to tone that down a little bit, probably darken all that cliff face, and a little bit in the trees. Maybe bring some trees down so it looks like distance going back, and it's pulling together very nicely. So now I got more of the foreground. I'm starting to create a pattern here, and so I'm going to have rocks, grass, rocks, flowers, rocks, and then grass that goes off into the distance into this hillside, kind of a cliff thing. And I'm going to kind of keep some of that simple. And so I'm just playing with adding some value to these rocks. And I'm trying to be random. Random's always hard. So I try to change the rock, try to get it to so it's isn't same size rocks, and being random's always difficult. So having a picture to look at and a rock pile really helps. It really helps break some of that up. Try to see where some can be different sizes, and just make it more interesting. Some of that down in here, but it's getting there. It's this is just the first layer. I'll definitely have to put more layers on to these weeds. Generally what you do is you start out with your shadow value, and then work up to your highlights, and that usually seems to work the best for me when I'm dealing with plants and trees and bushes and things like that. Is trying to get a lot of these shadows in here first, and then building lighter values on top. But to build the lighter values on top, you have to have this bottom layer somewhat dry before you can do that. So this may take a day or so for this to set up a little more, and it should look pretty good. Let's see, where is that? Oh, okay, I got lots of little rocks in here that I want to do yet. And I'll just make them different colors. Just some are pretty light gray. Some can be more this yellow ochre. I like the yellow ochre. It's going to match what I'm going to do with the coat here, the sheep. And it's looking pretty good. It's starting to pull together. Now it's going to allow me to start working the sheep next. After I get these rocks kind of sitting about where I want them, and then what I want to do is I want to blend some of these edges from the sheep to the background, so I don't have hard edges. Like the last one I did, I had a lot of hard edges. On this one, I want things to be softer and kind of blend together a little more. And so what I'll do to achieve that is probably before I quit tonight, I'll go over the top of this real quick with a fan brush, or just a clean white bristle brush, and just pull across it, and that will soften a lot of those edges. So just a little trick I learned, a little while back. So it's looking pretty good. So I worked some more. Oops, here, let's put this in. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So I worked some more on the rocks, increasing the contrast. I played with the grass. I may have overdone the grass a little bit, so I'll probably have to take my fan brush and knock that down a little. Make it a little more. Paintbrush getting away from me. Just brush that out, just so parts of it's not so, I'll just blur some of that. And see how that works. So it's just a dry fan brush, completely dry, and I'm just softening some of that, what's going on here, just so it's not so many harsh, hard brush strokes. And most of this back here is it's almost too dry, so I could do the same thing back here, and that'll help create distance, because I don't want hard edges in the distance. And a lot of painting's all about controlling edges sometimes. And that'll help make that go back. But I need to do more work on that for sure. That's just roughly thrown in there right now just to have some sort of value. So I didn't have white canvas. So I'm thinking I'm just going to let a lot of this here dry, and then I'm going to start working on the bighorn sheep, which is exciting. This is the fun part. And the horns are going to be really cool. I think I want to do just a close-up someday of just doing the horns and the head, because these are just beautiful. Absolutely really neat if you ever see them close up. So, yeah, that's getting there. Yeah, some of this is just a little bit just too harsh, and that helps knock that down a little bit. It doesn't take much to do that. And again, that's just using a fan brush, dry fan brush, no paint on it at all. Or I could use one of these brushes. This is a lot more to clean out though. So I like the little fan brush. And I can control it a little better. And just do some areas. Some parts still having the hard brush stroke, some parts just blur it out just a little bit. Yeah. this up here more. But that's just one technique to handle, because you don't want everything sharp. I like a lot of stuff sharp personally. Some people don't at all. They like to soften everything. Um, and it's just a personal preference. But yeah, you just run a fan brush over it and it softens all those edges a little. And it helps it recede. It helps it go back in the distance. For back there. For up here, it just gives a little more variety to what's going on. And that helps it. And I still need to put more little highlight things in here and little doodads and bring up the reds to as high as I can get them. Bring up the chroma on that. Yeah, I'll start working on the sheep and then integrating that all in, pulling it together. So now I've got color. I'm starting to work up some of the color and values in the bighorn sheep. Having lots of fun with the ram's horn here, and I'll show you that before I finish. I'll get to a close-up, and I'm working on highlights and little small detail things, and so a lot of this is just coming in and bringing the color in or adjusting it to be a warmer color, adding a little value. Some parts need to be grayed out more because the bighorn sheep has got lots of shadow on it, so it's backlit. And so I'm trying to decide if I should go more blue with the gray or a warm gray to create that feeling of shadow. And I'm kind of doing a combination of both, which can be bad, because then it just depends if the light is reflecting off the ground or reflecting off the sky. And so my theory is on this is I'm going to do light reflecting off the sky. Coming from the sky will be cool shadows, and then the shadows that have light reflected in from the ground will be warm. So this belly here will be a warmer shadow rather than cool. And I'm hoping, trying to come up with some method here, and it should all make sense as I'm doing this. So I'm thinking this is going to be warmer, probably a little darker here as I go along. So he's pulling together pretty nicely, and I have lots of adjusting color and things, and just having lots of fun with this. So I'm really enjoying the brushwork and the textures and the color, and I can go really wild with extreme color patches and things like that, and it's pretty enjoyable. I probably need to maybe simplify this background. I don't know if it needs to be simplified or I need to put a little more detail into it going off in the distance. I'll have to figure that out and work it out as I go. But I'm starting to get a nice sense of light in here, the strong sunlight hitting parts of the ram here. Really cool. It's fun. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you paint. Sometimes it's just the process of painting is enjoyable, and you just have to find something that you find an interest in, and something that can bring out what you enjoy in painting. And for me, it's color. in all these wild different color patterns and things like that. You know, I love playing with color. Sometimes I go too strong, which I'm thinking I probably went way too strong here. And I'll have to tone that down, add some grays into there. But it's otherwise it's just a lot of fun. You know, it's, you know, do what you enjoy doing, and you're gonna keep improving that. So let's do a little close up here. I'll try not to do finger cave. Okay. So if you look at the ram's head, you can see all the fun little brush strokes and color that I have here, you know, along with the body. I'll try not, and it becomes really abstract. It's just an abstract painting when you look at it up close, but when you pull out, it all makes sense. You know, there's the rocks. I had fun doing the rocks. Lots of fun color in the rocks, kind of like the ram. And so now I'll pull out, and you can see how it all pulls together. You know, starts making sense. So this is kind of where I'm at today. You know, whenever you're doing a painting's kind of a dance that you're doing. You do it again. You know, you have high contrast, low contrast. You're trying to create a feeling of light coming in on your subject. You're contrasting warm and cool colors against each other. You know, I added this warm into the negative space, and I think that helps that a lot. That used to be just all just gray, greenish gray, and you know, and then I you know, I think I'll work on some of this yellow back here. I contrasting harsh, you know, really sharp edges against softer, very softer edges. You know, here's hard edges, you know, gets very soft. And so you're always making all these different contrasts. You're contrasting neutral colors against you know, warm and cool colors, and it's all a dance. And you're just trying to get this everything to balance. And every painting's different, and so that's what makes painting exciting. Is you never know. You just never know where a painting's going to go, and so you're always trying to make these adjustments, and you're always trying to improve your technique and you know, how you see things. And the more you paint, the better those things get. But you know, there's always parts that don't work, parts that still need work here. Like all this is still, this brushwork is too predictable, and you know, so I need to change it up with a probably different size brush, different brush stroke, different colors in here, and so I'll have to adjust this. Probably add a lot more neutral colors in here rather than this really strong yellow green. And so it's adjusting it so this goes with this, and things work together. So you know, I put a lot of work into the ram yesterday, and a lot of work into the edges, trying to soften and blur some of the edges. Some of these edges I wanted these hard, you know, to draw attention to that point. I was working on reflected light, Soroya, the artist Soroya did a lot of work with reflected light and how the color temperature changes with reflected light. And so his theory was anything that comes from above, the shadow values will be cool. Anything that's reflected up from the ground, the shadows will be warm. And so he would do that balance, and he was a master at it. And I'm just starting to understand and learn that whole process, and so I'm trying to incorporate that into a painting. And so I, a lot of this is, so I'm still playing with some of the values on the ram's body. I'll probably work on increasing the contrast a little bit in some areas. I need to work on brushstroke to try to create that shagginess of the ram, and how the light hit this transition here between shadow and highlight, which I want to try to get. And then there's other little reflected light, the light hitting the inside of this leg, reflecting back on this leg, which creates that warm value there. And I want to be very sensitive on how I see this. And so I'm still working a lot of these issues out. I'm thinking this is too saturated in color, so I need to drop the chroma of this down, so this color is more grayed out, and I think that'll read better. It'll read better with this, like this, the chroma here is down, and so the color temperature is lower, and it's not as warm, and so there's adjustments, a lot of little adjustments I need to make here. You probably won't notice it in the finished video, but you should be able to see it. And so I'm going to take the camera and have it go and look close here again, so you can see what's going on. Yeah, look how the color changes when I get closer here. The camera just does not show the beautiful color as much as it could. And when I'm looking at the RAM, see how that's changed since the last video? Getting a little more refined. So I just keep trying to improve some of that, especially this color here, that warm background color. I think that's really helped that. And I may put some of that in the foreground more. And then when I zoom out, it's getting there. Starting to pull together. I love it. So I'm coming to the point where I'm thinking I'm pretty much done with a lot of painting here. I've added some rocks down here, and that's helped the strength of that to tone down a little bit, and so I also worked on some of the flowers. I worked on the background, and a lot of this is working in a little better. I strengthened some of the colors here just because I thought I could get away with it, and it seems to be working. And so, and I played with a lot of, trying to create a feeling of fur and ruffledness and things like that. And so it's all looking really good. I think I'm at the point of where I just need to sit back and look at it, and I just need to add maybe just a few touches here and there. But essentially, I think I'm pretty close to being done. So if you like the video, please hit the like button, and please subscribe because that always helps. This video is I did this because of Aiden Gerke, one of my former students who loved doing wildlife, and he's really gotten me into this. And this is all for my students and for Emma Renee. So, and I hope you enjoyed it. There's a close-up. You can see the extra brushwork I did in the back. And then, I played with working some of those flowers and some of those rocks and things down in the foreground. So that's the painting. It was fun.